Hey guys, what's up? Today we're gonna find out what the hell happened to White Knight Chronicles, a franchise that seemed to be very successful during the 2010-2011 era, but at the end, it turns out it wasn't. Wanna know why? Well, stay put. Let's begin! Sony has a first-party team called Japan Studio. They've made several different games for many different PlayStation systems. One day, they were approached by a new studio called Level 5, founded by director and game developer Akihiro Hino in October 1998. These two studios began working together on other RPGs such as Dark Cloud, Rogue Galaxy, and Jeanne d'Arc, all exclusive to their respective systems. Level 5 also developed Dragon Quest VIII, obviously published by Square Enix, and created a series on the Nintendo DS called Professor Layton. Between 2006 and 2007, Sony noticed the increase of popularity of RPGs on a physical format, which also offered an online multiplayer mode. They became interested in investing on a game that could compete inside this new market. So they thought about Level 5, of course, with their experience together. So in conjunction with Level 5, they developed White Knight Chronicles. It was released on December 25, 2008, only in Japan. There were plans on localizing it everywhere else, but the online features of the game were too much to handle in such a short period of time. Localization happened finally between February and March 2010 for Europe and North America, released as White Knight Chronicles International Edition. By that time, a sequel was almost ready to be published in Japan. White Knight Chronicles was a medieval RPG that combined a real-time strategy battle system with action, much like the Dragon Age series or Final Fantasy XII. Players would select during real time the actions of their playable character and have them attack by themselves. It was pretty basic, to be honest, but still very fun to play. Story was there, well written and polished, as well as some outstanding graphics for its time. Nevertheless, the single player mode offline was too short and gamers could beat the entire game in less than 20 hours. The online gameplay was the main course of this RPG, mostly carried through quests that you could play with other players. The game sold very well during its first weeks in Japan and also in the West. However, reception was mixed, with critics and gamers feeling the game was too short, too simple, with online features that were engaging but not addictive. Despite its reception outside Japan, White Knight Chronicles 2, a direct sequel of the first game, was released on July 8, 2010. And as you can see in the cover, it included a fully remastered version of its prequel. It took around a year for it to be localized outside Japan, reaching North America until September 13, 2011. Sadly, it didn't sell well. Not even in its country of origin, disappointing players worldwide. The game was still fun to play and it followed the adventures of the original characters in the first title. However, even though some mechanics had been polished, both the offline and online experiences felt lackluster. It was as if you were playing the exact same game as before. White Knight Chronicles 2 failed onto the Western market and its online servers were shut down on June 18, 2013. Akihiro Hino had directed, produced, written and designed the first game. But he was barely involved in this sequel though. So after the failure, both him and his company withdrew from the franchise to continue focusing on their newly successful title, Ni no Kuni, also on the PS3. Sony didn't give up on the series, however, as they had been at least somewhat successful in Japan. With Level 5 gone, they needed to hire another company to help Japan Studio develop a new title in the franchise. Matrix Software, responsible for creating The Alondra series and several other RPGs, including ports of Final Fantasy titles to the Nintendo DS and PSP, joined the project. So while ironically White Knight Chronicles 2 was being translated to the West during 2011, early that same year in February, Sony released White Knight Chronicles Origins as an exclusive to the PSP. There was also an online co-op mode here, but barely anybody tried it. It didn't sell well over there, mainly because it felt different even though its gameplay mechanics were almost identical to its predecessors. In the end, it was as if Matrix Software had just tried to copy them in order to alleviate the pressure from Sony and Japan Studio. Origins was a prequel to the franchise, taking place 10,000 years before the first game, but it was more of a spin-off than anything. It was a solid RPG, quest-driven, with an interesting story about a mercenary group and a charming cast of characters. Sadly, and as suspected, it failed in Japan, and as a result, with Sony losing interest and money during its first weeks of sales, Origins was only localized to Europe and Australia on June 10, 2011. There was never a North American release. They didn't even bother. In conclusion, it's sad to admit that the only thing that truly happened with this franchise was failure. It didn't do well since the very beginning. Sure, the idea and the concept brought a lot of interest from gamers all around the world during the release of the first game, but reception was lukewarm in some areas, and the game eventually became a niche classic more than a mainstream title. It was no commercial success in reality. People were more interested in the offline experience than the online quest features. It wasn't exactly a masterpiece of a game or a revolutionary RPG, but it was good, fun, and very enjoyable. The main problem were the gigantic expectations it had worldwide. So sales for the first game were acceptable, but sales from the other two were mostly below average and didn't comply at all with Sony's agenda. Nonetheless, and in the end, it was a series that failed with reviewers since the very first game. Level 5 noticed this immediately and wasted no time into moving on to other projects. We may never see a new title ever again, but at least today we learned what the hell happened to White Knight Chronicles. So that's it for this video, my friends. As you can clearly see, sometimes nothing really deep or intrinsic happened. Games just fail, and companies need to move on. That's all. White Knight Chronicles was just never successful to begin with, not even from the first game. Sure, it sold a hell of a lot, but most people were disappointed. In my personal opinion, I wasn't. I enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it, as a matter of fact. No masterpiece, but it was pretty darn good for me, enough for me to recommend it to all of you. I haven't played the second one, but I did play Origins on the PSP, and it was also a pretty fun adventure in my opinion. Alright, so all that is left is for you guys to give it a try if you want to and formulate your own opinion on the matter. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!